The whole island was pretty much native, and what was unique about that was we probably had natives from every part of the state. So yeah, it was pretty unique because you got to get along with all of them, you know. It was a very boat community, you know, everybody had their own little boat, little skiff or something. Yeah, you had to catch the shore boat, and they had 3 shore boats, the Teddy, the Arrowhead, and the Donna. And then the Dorothy was the grocery boat. Mr. Briggs would go over to, they'd order all their groceries over at the cold storage. Then they'd box them up, load them on the Dorothy and bring them over to the Coast Guard dock. And you'd get a bunch of us kids that we'd go and we'd deliver to all the houses on the island.
Yeah, Harry Jimmy had a boathouse, Andrew Hope had a boathouse, the Howards had a boathouse. They were building boats, a lot of boats built here. Scotty Jennings had a boathouse.
Yeah, we could always hear Andrew Hope's shop when they had the machines running. My cousin Pat Littlefield and I would always go in there, and they had a trap door that we'd open it up and start dumping all the sawdust down there and go play down on the beach in the sawdust. So we'd get a pat on the back from Andrew Hope when we did that. Oh, you guys are hired.
Did Uncle Harry build boats down there in his shop too?
Oh,
Did you
yeah.
get to hang out with him when he was doing that?
Yeah, we helped him build the Pearl Street.
Yeah.
That boat's still floating around. My cousin and I hung out with him all winter when he built the boat. And we helped him launch it, and
Yeah.
we got to go with him when he first took it out fishing, and we were right out here by a 6 Mile Rock. We had the radio on listening to news, and that was the day Robert Kennedy got shot.
44, he started building his first sailboat. Built it down there in Simpson's shop down by Totem Park. But he built the first Martha Kay there. Him and my mother built it together. I spent a lot of time working with my father. I worked with him long enough to be a shipwright. I could build and repair boats. I never tell too many people that, but before contact, they claim you could almost walk on the oceans. There was so much fish and stuff in them. And one of the big reasons was because of the herring, the food that all the other fish ate. And they start causing that to disappear, then we start having troubles.
Yeah, it used to spawn from Salisbury Sound all the way up to Silver Bay and all the way south on the outside. Now you get a little area around Sitka, and they call it wonderful.
The commercial fleet got greedy. They got these $1 million sets, and now everybody's suffering from that. You know, that's why I think a lot of Sitkans, we hold on to our eggs even from the years before, because we're never sure if we're going to have eggs again this year or not.
We'll lose it. It's happened all over Southeast already, and Sitka's the only place on this earth where people are actually standing up and speaking about it.
But we used to have so much wildlife out there, whales, killer whales, sea lions during herring season. It was really nice. Up there, the herring would come in so thick that it'd be all around our legs. And we'd just sit there with a little dip net. But it made the kids feel so good that they could bring dinner home for the family, you know, and we were like 7.
We used to row to these islands out here. When we were kids, we had no boats, we had no motors. We would row out there, and we'd hang the herring eggs on the branches of the trees, and they'd air dry.
Back in the day, when you'd go down, when the herring were spawning, when you'd go down in the village down there on Catleyan Street, there was just branches, herring egg branches hanging all over the fences and clotheslines and everything. It was just, people were drying them then, you know.
I used to load my boat with herring eggs here, go to Juneau, go to Heidelberg, go to Craig, whatever, and give it away.
I built model boats. Then there was time for me to go fishing. When my childhood was over. Dad put us to work at 12 years old. My second time on the year on the boat, I was given a quarter share, but I got to help work on parts of the seine and parts of the fishing. Help pull the corks, and it's hard to believe I was about maybe 86 pounds. I was just a little guy. My uncle almost used to pile the corks with me sometimes.
They told me there's no more mom, no more dad, that's your captain. That was 12. Yeah, my dad had 5 boys and we were all in the crew. So waited all my life to be there. Here I am. One of the kids would always get old enough to go fishing and they'd disappear and go fishing for the summer. It wasn't a whole bunch of fun. It was a lot of work. And we'd get to the cannery, walk around on the dock, and when that Ernie or Harvey Jacobs would come by, "What are you doing walking around with your hands in your pockets? You're the skipper's son." "Oh no." That was the worst thing they could call you, was the skipper's son. Pretty sad. You go down the dock now, and it used to be when old herring boats came in, all the old, beautiful old wood boats used to come in, and we'd go down there. And yeah, it's a thing of the past anymore, unfortunately. They're not made out of wood anymore. They're plastic and steel. And they're battleships, for crying out loud. They're bigger than most of the tenders we used to have.
So you would sit, like Mama would say, "Oh no," that means sit down. And then Daddy would start telling us different stories. Maybe a fishing story, maybe it was a sailing story, maybe it was a hunting story. But there were stories told.
When we were growing up, there was no TV or radios, nothing. We just had to play outside. And that's all we did was play outside. But I think that's where we got our sense of humor. We'd sit and tell stories, make up stories and stuff. Nobody talks anymore or laughs. We used to do that all the time. When we were growing up, they didn't speak Tlingit around us. They stopped talking when we came in. They weren't allowed to teach us. They'd get in trouble for speaking their language, so we never did get to learn.
I am a product of Sheldon Jackson. They tried to kill us off. They damn near succeeded.
Yeah.
They didn't want us to learn our language or cultures. They wanted us to go to school. Well, I hated school. Luckily, there's a few people around that are still fluent and know enough about our culture that I could pick up on some of it anyway.
My dad only went to the 4th grade. My mom never had schooling. In fact, she didn't speak English very well. So we learned our Tlingit words listening to them, but we were forbidden to repeat after them. That's how your tongue learns the language, you know. So a lot of us, my age, could never speak our language, but understood what was being said. Well, in the other parts of town, you didn't dare go there because there was always kids that were going to push you around and fight with you. There were some nice Caucasians that, you know, there were some businessmen, 2 that I know of, the Tilsons, if you've ever heard the name. They spoke our language. And they would work with the Indian people because you didn't always have money, depending on the fishing or the trapping, what did you have. And they would allow them to have credit. To go to the movie theater, we were only allowed to sit in a certain area in the movie theater. Never venture anywhere else in the movie theater.
It never occurred to me in the theater, Coliseum Theater, when I was a kid, the natives old timers always sat on the right-hand side, always. But not the younger ones that I hung out with. They sat in the middle with us or over on the other side. But I guess at one time it had been segregated. And I just found out just last week when I was talking to Pat Martin, she said, apparently she said, I don't remember it, but she said, I've been told now there was a separate drinking fountain in the lobby. And I didn't know that either.
Between the cottages and the school, we'd have to make our way through the non-native kids. Some of them were quite bullies, but all in all, it was never really anything real bad. Kind of made us who we are, I guess.
I remember growing up on the island thinking, you know, this place is good. This is good enough. I don't want to venture over the bridge. I don't want to come over here and deal with the racism that I had seen already. And I have fond memories of the school over there on Alice Island. Because instead of having to go across the bridge and go to school, we all just stayed on the island. So we knew everybody. We knew we were all safe.
I remember their mom used to work at the Pioneer Home in the 60s, 70s. She'd bake, she'd go to work at 4 or 5 in the morning till 1 or 2. Then she'd go home, make bread for everybody. And all the kids in the neighborhood would come by and have bread. And then she'd sew moccasins. And she'd sit up all night. I don't even know if she slept. She was always beading, making moccasins, tanning the hides, seal hides. She'd always, her hands were so beat up, she'd use those little 3-cornered needles that were just tough. And she would just sew all night. I'll probably sell her moccasins for $15, $10 a pair. Now you're lucky if you can get some for $150 a pair.
Yeah.
But she'd work all night on that. And then go work again and start all over.
What kind of upsets me about weaving and carving and everything, anymore they do it to sell, do it for profit. Every time I make something, I give it away. I get more out of giving it away than selling it. You know, I feel like I'm cheating somebody if I take money from them. I won't do it.
We were always involved in these cultural things, and they were held in tribal houses. That's why so many of the tribal houses have such large, what they call the front room. And there would be wooden benches that people would sit on. Women were always against the wall. The men were the center of the dance group. And let me tell you, watching the men dance was fantastic. They would practically throw themselves on the floor as they were dancing and bring themselves back up. Can you imagine the strength it would take to do that? It was so impressive.
For subsistence around here, we used to have lots of abalone, gumboots, and bringing them otter in, it's taken its toll, all right, but watching it happen and participating here and seeing my favorite cockle bed get just taken down to nothing, and by 4 otter. Yeah, they just worked it all winter, I guess, but anyhow.
We missed at least 2 months of school after fall fishing because we would go and camp to put up our food for the winter. And yes, we got deer, we smoked deer, we had seal, we made seal oil and put the smoked seal meat and put that in the oil. The grocery store was for flour, sugar, or coffee. Those were the basics. Otherwise, you put up your own food.
My parents always had three kegs of fish, salted fish, always. And one of them was full of king salmon. Every year would fill it up with king salmon, salted. The other one was a Pacific cod, and the third one was herring. Yeah, it was a nice thing. Whenever the herring boat would come into the cold storage would toot their whistle, and that was the signal to the people in town to grab a bucket and come down and get all the free herring you wanted.
Grandpa used to take Frida and the rest of the kids out picking grapes, and they'd go out and he'd take them over to the islands. You could smell grape ferns. When you got up to that island, you could smell them. Then turn the kids loose on the beach and they just go and pick grape ferns.
We used to like to pick them because they're about a foot long. You just take it, just put your hand up there and fill up your bucket in no time. I remember Grandma had a basement and she had a little tiny room. It was wall-to-wall jars of food. Yeah, the jars of sockeye or jar deer meat or something. She had everything in there.
Yeah, when Mom and Dad were talking one time about during the Depression, it didn't bother them up here. Nobody had any money anyway, but they weren't never hungry.
We were always working on fish to send out to family. We were all raised to give the excess that we don't use. And so firewood, fish, you know, whatever she needs, here you go.
If I can find, you know, where there's abundance, I don't harvest just for me. I give it away, and there's people, I mean, God, they love it. It all comes back.